The static is particularly heavy over the channel tonight, but if the shortwave is holding, we are live. It is Friday, August 15th, 1941, and I am looking out over a completely blacked out London. The wardens just went past my window. It is quiet here, but the papers, well, they are anything but quiet. We are just weeks out from President Roosevelt's announced embargo on oil and aviation fuel to Japan, and the United States has officially extended Lend-Lease to the Soviets as of August 2nd. It feels like the machinery of the entire world is being re-engineered overnight. And joining us from the KDCR studio in New York, where I trust the lights are still burning, is my partner, George Wilson. George, how is the connection on your end, fella?
The New York line is holding, Simon, though the smoke in this booth is thick enough to choke a horse. It's a heavy night in the city. You walk past the newsstands on Times Square, and the ink's barely dry on these headlines about the Eastern Front. The Germans are squeezing Smolensk, and Moscow is signing this new pact with the British. Then you got Washington freezing all these foreign assets left and right. It feels like the whole world is finally waking up to the fact that you can't fight a massive, organized gang of thugs by yourself. And speaking of thugs, you look at what's hitting the stands this month, and the shadows are getting longer. We're diving into Detective Comics number 40, 41, 42, and the giant 96-page World's Fair comics. We are finally meeting the true architects of theatrical dread. We're talking about Basil Karlo, Clayface.
Basil Karlo. Yes, a character who represents a very different kind of villain than the simple mobsters we saw in the early run. This isn't just about protection money, George. It's about, identity. Let's crack open Detective Comics number 40 from June 1940. It starts not in a back alley hideout, but on the movie set of the Argus Motion Picture Company. Bruce Wayne is visiting his fiancée, Julie Madison, who is starring in a remake of a classic horror film called Dread Castle. And there, on the set, they meet Basil Karlo, the legendary character actor who played the original Terror years ago.
Yeah, Karlo. The guy is a real tragic case. He finds out they're remaking his masterpiece with a new young actor, Kenneth Todd, and it just breaks his brain. He goes completely off the trolley. He steals the grotesque clay mask of his old character, Clayface, and starts picking off the cast and crew one by one, trying to halt the production. On page 5, the cameras are grinding, and Kenneth Todd is acting out a scene where the Terror is supposed to kill the Countess. But in the darkened corner of the set, a hideous face watches with baleful eyes. Suddenly, the lights go out. A scream rings out. When the lights flicker back on, Lorna Dane, the leading lady, is lying on the floor, stabbed to death. It's pure cinematic horror, Simon. The frame-by-frame progression is so tight, it reads like a Fritz Lang picture.
It does indeed, and Kane's artwork really leans into that, German expressionism. Look at the heavy shadows under the catwalks and the way Clayface's mask is drawn. It's not smooth, it's this crinkled, desiccated skin that looks like wet paper mache. But what's fascinating is how the mystery unfolds. Julie Madison is terrified. She visits Bruce Wayne at his apartment. Bruce, of course, plays the useless playboy, telling her, "Don't worry, dear, the murderer won't try for you. You're too beautiful." But the moment she leaves, the playboy mask drops. He turns to Dick Grayson and says, "Julie is in danger. Put on your outfit. We're going out."
And when they get back to the studio, they run straight into Roxy Brenner's gang, trying to shake down the director, Bentley, for protection money. Batman and Robin drop through the skylight like a pair of bricks. There's a beautiful panel on page 6 where Robin is swinging from a rope, and he literally kicks a gangster's hat clean off his head. A real boxing-style jab. But the gang is just a distraction. While Batman is routing the hoods, Fred Walker, another actor, is found hanging from a hook in a closet. Before he dies, he gasps out one word to Batman. Clayface. Clayface.
Clayface. It's a chilling deathbed confession. And meanwhile, Robin is investigating the empty studio grounds. He wanders into the actual Dread Castle set under the moon. He sees a light in the tower and thinks, "Seems I'm not the only one out tonight." He climbs the winding stone staircase, but from high above, Clayface is waiting. He leaps. Robin ducks, and the villain goes hurtling over his shoulder. But then, Robin slips on a fallen lamp. Page 10, panel 3. Clayface stands over the boy, snarling, "I need no knife. I can kill you with my bare hands. I'll drag this fool boy to the parapet and throw his body into the moat below." And he does. He literally tosses the boy wonder over the castle wall.
That moat scene is a nail-biter, Simon. Robin is falling through the air, and Batman, who has just arrived at the gates, sees the body plunge into the black water. He doesn't hesitate. He dives straight in, cleaving the water just as the kid sinks. They scramble out, cold and wet, and Batman realizes they're dealing with a genuine lunatic. The next day, Karlo is back in his makeup room, donning the garments of death once more, preparing to kill Julie Madison during the climax of the film. He creeps onto the catwalk, raises his knife, and screams, "Die, Julie!" But then, a rope encircles his wrist. Batman swings down from the rafters, shouting, "May I cut in?" It's a spectacular rooftop duel on the narrow steel beams of the studio ceiling.
The catwalk fight is the visual peak of the issue, George. Kane draws these massive, diagonal lines that make the studio rafters look like a steel cage. Batman punches Clayface, but the madman has the strength of a maniac. He grabs a dangling rope to escape, but Robin is already waiting. The boy wonder drops from the catwalk, landing right on Clayface's shoulders, knocking him to the floor. They tear the mask off, and there is the sweaty, terrified face of Basil Karlo. He confesses he wanted to kill Todd, then Dane, then Julie, matching the exact order of deaths in the original script of Dread Castle. He wanted his final reel to be real blood.
It's a sick, twisted logic. It shows how the strip is transitioning away from simple bank robbers. Clayface isn't trying to buy a mink coat or a fancy car. He's trying to preserve his own artistic vanity through murder. He's a psychological monster, Simon, a precursor to all the colorful lunatics we're going to see in the years to come.
Speaking of theatrical spectacles, we have to look at the massive 1940 New York World's Fair comics. This is a 96-page giant, George, and the Batman feature inside is a real masterpiece of wartime anxiety disguised as technological optimism. Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson are walking through the Flushing Meadows grounds, looking at the Trilon and the Perisphere, the City of Tomorrow. Dick says, "Wow, I heard it was big, but I didn't think it was this big." But then, the newscast on the radio ruins the mood. The West River Bridge, just miles away, has suddenly collapsed. Observers say the steel seemed to melt away like butter under an acetylene torch.
Yeah, the world of tomorrow meets the destruction of today. The letter sent to the police department claims a mad inventor named Dr. Vreekill has built a machine that can displace the atoms of steel and turn bridges into dust unless the city pays him $300,000. Dick Grayson goes to inspect the ruins of the bridge, and he runs into a gang of thugs trying to kidnap a young girl named Anne. Dick doesn't have his Robin suit, but he doesn't need it. He pitch piles into them like a regular hurricane. He tackles one hood, kicks another in the shin, and punches a third clean on the chin. He's a one-boy riot squad, Simon.
It's a wonderful display of acrobatics, George. But the girl, Anne, reveals a terrifying secret. Dr. Vreekill is her uncle. She escaped from his laboratory after seeing him demonstrate the machine on a massive block of steel, turning it to powder in seconds. Vreekill plans to use the machine to break open the state prison, freeing all the death row inmates to join his private army. Batman and Robin take the Batplane to the prison, but they are almost too late. Vreekill's wave generator has already dissolved the iron bars of the cells, and the prisoners are rushing the gates. The guards raise their rifles, but clank! The steel of their guns disintegrates in their hands.
Talk about a helpless situation. The guards are holding nothing but wooden stocks. But then, a giant bat-shaped shadow is thrown on the ground. Batman drops gas capsules from the Batplane, blinding the escaping convicts, then lands the plane right in the yard. He and Robin grab a massive metal flagpole, using it as a two-man battering ram to sweep the prisoners back into their blocks. It's a beautiful, kinetic sequence. But Vreekill escapes to his hideout in the half-finished Monarch building. Batman and Robin scale the steel girders of the skyscraper, tracking the hum of the atomic generator.
The Monarch building confrontation is extremely tense. Riekel is cornered in his laboratory on the top floor. He screams, "Jail? You'll never take me to jail. Never." In his panic, he lunges toward his machine, but his hand strikes an exposed high-voltage wire. There is a massive flash of light, and he is electrocuted by his own engine of destruction. The issue ends with Bruce and Dick back at the fair, watching the lights of the perisphere. It's a sobering reminder that the same science that builds the future can so easily tear it down.
A real lesson for 1941, Simon. And that brings us straight to Detective Comics 41 from July 1940, which takes that sense of hidden danger and puts it inside an elite private academy. The Blake School for Boys. Ted Spencer, a pupil at the school, is kidnapped from his dormitory room by a mysterious, masked figure. The next day, the papers are screaming about a homicidal maniac who has escaped from the nearby asylum. Bruce Wayne decides the best way to investigate is to enroll Dick Grayson as an undercover student. Principal Blake welcomes them, saying, "I think your ward will prove a very apt pupil, Mr. Wayne."
Apt pupil indeed. Dick immediately gets to work, questioning the other boys in the dormitory. He finds Ted Spencer's diary hidden among his school books. The last entry reads, "Last night, I saw a masked man walking down the corridor. I wonder who the masked man is. I'm going to tell Mr. Blake about it." But as Dick is reading, a gloved hand reaches into the panel and snatches the book. It's the masked menace himself. He snarls, "I'll take that. You're not the only one who wants that diary."
And the fight is on in the dark dormitory. The masked man swings a heavy wooden chair, smashing it down on Robin's head, knocking him cold. By the time Robin wakes up, the diary is gone, and the masked man has fled. Robin uses the tiny wireless built into his belt buckle to contact Batman, who is waiting outside the school walls. The next night, Robin is on the prowl again. He scales the high stone wall of the principal's house, slipping through the window. He finds Mr. Blake sitting in his armchair, but the principal is dead, strangled. And outside the window, the escaped lunatic is standing over the body of a school janitor, screaming, "Try to tell me you're a janitor. I know you're a keeper from the asylum."
The lunatic, Greer, is completely out of his mind, George. Robin leaps from the window, tackling him. The madman pulls a knife, but Robin uses a quick wrist lock and a hip throw to disarm him, pinning him to the ground just as the police arrive. The police think the case is closed. They assume the escaped madman killed both the janitor and Principal Blake. But Robin isn't convinced. He tells Batman, "I still think the case is open. I have a hunch something is going to happen tonight."
And his hunch is dead on. At midnight, Robin is lurking in the empty school building. He sees a shadowy figure enter a classroom, press a secret panel behind the blackboard, and vanish into a hidden tunnel. Robin follows him through the dark passageway, emerging into an abandoned old dwelling near the school grounds. Inside, he finds a counterfeiting ring in full operation. They have Ted Spencer tied to a chair. The boss of the ring is the masked menace, and he's arguing with his partner. "Blake sure coined a lot of dough by sticking with us. But he got panicky and wanted to quit, so we fixed him."
It's a counterfeiting ring using the school as a front. Robin bursts through the door like a human avalanche, but the odds are 3-1. Just as they are about to overpower him, Batman crashes through the window. "Come on, Robin, let's rough them up a bit." They go to town on the hoods, and Robin uses his ancient slingshot, a weapon we haven't seen in a while, to launch a steel pellet that strikes the fleeing masked man right in the head, knocking him flat.
They pull off the mask, and there's the face of Mr. Graves, the eccentric art teacher. He was a master engraver who was printing the fake bills in the school's art studio, using the secret tunnel to move the money. Graves and Principal Blake were partners, but when Blake got cold feet, Graves strangled him and tried to frame the escaped lunatic. It's a brilliant, tightly plotted mystery, Simon. The transition from gothic horror to schoolhouse detective work is seamless.
It really is. And that brings us to Detective Comics number 42, August 1940, and a story called The Case of the Prophetic Pictures. This is one of the most macabre concepts of the early run, George. It revolves around a starving artist named Antal, whose portraits seem to predict the exact manner of his patrons' deaths. We start at a fashionable party thrown by Mr. Wiley, where Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson are introduced to Antal. Wiley is Antal's agent and manager, boasting that he will make him the most famous painter in America. But Antal is a deeply troubled man, surrounded by enemies who accuse him of ruin and murder.
Yeah, like Mikov, the brother of a girl who committed suicide after Antal left her. He corners Antal at the party, screaming, "I should kill you. Next time I warn you, I will throttle you." Then there's Ryder, an angry husband who warns Antal to stay away from his wife. But the real horror starts when Antal finishes his first portrait of a wealthy patron named Vangild. The next night, Vangild finds his portrait has been slashed with a knife. Hours later, Vangild is found dead in his study, with a real knife plunged into his chest, matching the portrait exactly.
The prediction is fulfilled! And it happens again with Carmen Largo, the famous opera star. Her portrait is delivered with a red dart driven through the throat. That very night, during her performance at the Opera House, a real dart flies from the shadows, piercing her neck as she sings. She collapses on stage, dead. The public is in a panic over these prophetic murders. The next patron, a wealthy man named Warren, receives his portrait showing him hanging from a rope. He makes a frantic appeal to the police, but when Batman arrives at Warren's duplex penthouse, he is too late. He finds Warren's body dangling from the ceiling.
But the police think Batman did it. They burst into the room and grab him. Batman has to make a quick leap, grabbing a massive crystal chandelier and swinging across the room, kicking the officers like 10 pins. He slides down the banister, jumps into the elevator, and roars away in the Batmobile. He realized someone is using Antal's paintings as a blueprint for murder. The next day, Wiley, the agent, comes into Commissioner Gordon's office, disheveled and bleeding from a gunshot wound in his arm. He claims the murderer visited his home and shot him, warning him that Wiley's own portrait is next on the list. Wiley says he's going to hide out on his friend Roger's yacht to escape.
Wiley's yacht escape is a clever setup. That night, a sleek boat cuts through the fog toward the yacht. Robin has sneaked aboard, and through the cabin window, he sees a ghastly scene. A hooded figure wearing a skull mask is about to shoot an arrow at Wiley's friend Travers. Robin draws a steel pellet from his belt and launches it from his slingshot, striking the arrow in mid-air. He leaps at the murderer, but the killer is fast. He pulls a knife, pins Robin's cape to the wall with an arrow, and escapes in a high-speed motorboat. Robin is plunged into the freezing sea, but he manages to swim back, saving Travers' life.
And back at the Wayne Manor, Bruce realizes the truth. He has his own portrait painted by Antal, pretending to be a vain playboy. The painting is finished, and the next morning they find bullet holes in the canvas, right through the head. Bruce tells Dick, "I'm going to sit in this chair tonight and wait for the murderer." At midnight, the shadowy skull-masked figure slips into the library. He levels his revolver at the man in the chair and fires point blank. But wait, the figure in the chair doesn't move. It's a dummy. Suddenly, the real Batman steps out of the shadows, shouting, "That'll be enough of that."
My card, sir. The Batman, at your service. It's a fantastic trap, George. The killer lunges forward with a knife, and they have a brutal struggle across the library table. Batman uses a spectacular judo-style sweep, throwing the killer over his head. He tears off the skull mask, and there's the face of Mr. Wiley. The wounded arm was a self-inflicted hoax. Wiley had bought up all of Antal's paintings for next to nothing while in Europe, knowing that if the artist's patrons died under mysterious, prophetic circumstances, the value of the paintings would skyrocket. He was engineering the murders to make a fortune on the art market.
It's a devious scheme, but Wiley can't face the music. He tears loose, plucks his fallen pistol off the floor, and screams, "You're not going to hand me to the police!" He pulls the trigger and ends his own life. A dark, theatrical finish for a dark, theatrical villain. And that leads us straight into the blockbuster of the year. Batman #2, Summer 1940. The first story is a historic reunion. The Joker is back, fella. He's recovering in Vesalius Hospital under police guard, but a mob called Crime Syndicate Inc., led by a bald crook named Weasel, decides they need his brain. They raid the hospital, shootout and all, and break him out before the doctors can even finish his operation.
The hospital breakout is incredibly chaotic, George. The Weasel's men dress up as visiting relatives, carrying guns under their coats. They shoot the guards and seize the operating room where the Joker is lying on the table with an oxygen mask. They carry him out, but the police are waiting outside. Commissioner Gordon has his men scale the fire escapes to trap them. But Batman arrives, leaping from the roof like a bolt of lightning. He knocks out 2 officers who mistake him for a crook, dives into an open roadster, and speeds away. The police chase him, but the roadster careens into a tree and explodes. Batman escapes into an old barn, using blazing bales of hay to repel the officers, before stealing a police horse and galloping away under a rain of bullets.
A horse! Only Batman could pull that off in the middle of a car chase. But the Joker is safely hidden in the Syndicate's lair. He recovers with amazing speed, and Weasel tells him they want to steal the priceless Pharaoh's gems, valued at $10,000, which are being shipped to a museum. But the Joker double-crosses them immediately. He gives the Syndicate members a temporary sleeping potion that knocks them out, planning to take the gems for himself. But someone else is trailing the Syndicate. A mysterious chewing gum saleswoman who steps behind a building and reveals herself to be the Cat. Catwoman is back, and she's got her own eyes on the Pharaoh's gems.
The Cat's return really complicates the geometry of the book, George. She bargains with Batman, offering to lead him to the Joker's hunting lodge in exchange for her freedom. But she doesn't reveal that the Joker has already invited her to the castle of E.S. Arthur, the wealthy collector who currently holds the gems. When the Cat arrives at the castle, she finds Arthur dead in his chair, his face twisted into that awful, frozen Joker grin. The Joker steps out from behind a tapestry, holding a gun and snarling, "Hand over that jewel cask, my pretty, or must I kill you first?"
But Robin drops through the window, crashing straight into the Joker. They have a wild, wrestling brawl on the floor, but the Joker is wiry. He grabs a heavy medieval war club off the wall and stands over the prostrate Boy Wonder, preparing to crush his skull. But the Cat distracts him just long enough for Batman to swing in on a rope, kicking the club out of the Joker's hand. Batman challenges the Joker to a duel with ancient swords from Arthur's collection. It's a spectacular, swashbuckling fight on the high castle balcony under the moon.
The sword duel is beautifully drawn by Kane, George. The Joker is surprisingly skilled, forcing Batman back onto the very edge of the stone balustrade. Batman slips and plunges over the side, falling into the dark space below. The Joker laughs hysterically, thinking he has won. But Batman manages to grab a thick, gnarled vine hugging the castle wall, breaking his fall. He climbs back up, cornering the Joker inside the burning library. The Cat barricades herself behind an oak door, and the Joker tries to burn her out with a crossbow and flaming arrows. But Batman and Robin force him to flee in the Batplane.
And the Cat escapes too. She dives from the castle ladder into the swirling torrents of the moat below, clutching the jewel cask. Batman watches her vanish into the water, muttering, "Au revoir, Catwoman." A real class act, that lady. But that's just the first story in this giant issue, Simon. The next chapter, The Crime Master, is a classic Jekyll and Hyde tragedy. We meet Adam Lamb, a timid, mild-mannered custodian at Craig's museum. He spends his nights reading a book called The Crime Master, dreaming of being a criminal mastermind. One night, he trips on a loose carpet and tumbles down the museum stairs, hitting his head right under a mounted bat frame just as the clock strikes midnight.
The fall causes a profound psychological rupture, George. When Lamb rises, his face has twisted into a vicious, slitted leer. His eyes burn with fury. He discards his glasses, straightens his posture, and becomes the Wolf, a ruthless gang leader who uses the museum's secrets to plan perfect robberies. The next morning, Lamb wakes up in his bed with no memory of his nighttime crimes, dismissed as queer dreams. But the Wolf's gang is terrorizing the city. Batman and Robin trail them to a waterfront warehouse, but during the fight on the pier, a bullet penetrates Batman's steel vest, lodging in his shoulder. He teeters on the edge and falls into the murky water below.
Robin goes absolutely berserk when he sees Batman fall. He tackles the hoods, kicking and throwing them like a one-boy army. He drags the weakened Batman out of the water and takes him back to the laboratory under Wayne Manor. There's a really tense, quiet scene on page 11 where Dick Grayson, his hands shaking, has to use a pair of surgical probes to extract the bullet from Bruce's shoulder while Bruce lies unconscious on the table. It shows the real, physical stakes of their mission, Simon. These guys aren't bulletproof.
It is a very intimate human moment. But Bruce recovers quickly. He realizes the robberies match the exact plots of the book, The Crime Master, and deduces that the timid custodian, Adam Lamb, is the leader. That night, they corner the wolf in the museum just as he is about to stab Craig with a scalpel. Robin lunges through the window, tackling the wolf, while Batman grabs him. As the wolf struggles, his eyes rivet upon the bat emblem on Batman's chest. The sight of the bat triggers his memory of the fall. He gasps, "A bat! A bat! I seem to remember. It's all hazy." He stumbles backward, tumbling down the very same museum stairs, fracturing his skull.
He dies in Craig's arms, his face softening back into the mild, timid features of Adam Lamb. His last words are a plea for forgiveness. "Now I understand. I must tell you, I'm sorry." It's a tragic, clinical case of brain trauma turning a good man into a monster. And then we move to The Clubfoot Murderers, which is a classic, old dark house thriller. Harley Storm, a wealthy patriarch, is murdered by a mysterious killer with a distorted foot and a steel claw for a hand. The suspects are the greedy Storm family: Portia, Carl, Abel, Roger, and their lawyer, Ward. Each of them receives a golden token from the will with the inscription, "United we stand, divided we fall."
The family is torn apart by greed, George. Roger Storm is found murdered next, and Robin is nearly killed by Clubfoot's steel claw on the mansion grounds. But Batman investigates the lawyer, Ward. He finds Ward chained in a cellar, claiming Clubfoot beat him and stole the final letter of the will. But when Clubfoot corners Batman in the study, Batman notices a small detail. He kicks the gun out of the killer's hand, pulls off his heavy coat and false beard, and reveals the lawyer, Ward. Ward was Clubfoot all along. He had a forged Clubfoot shoe and a prosthetic claw, planning to murder the entire Storm family to inherit their secret gold mine. He chained himself as a clever frame-up, but Batman's sharp eyes saw through the theatricality.
A lawyer with a fake foot and a steel hook. You can't make this stuff up. And the final story in the issue, The Case of the Missing Link, is just pure pulp adventure. Professor Drake returns from Africa with a 15-foot prehistoric giant named Goliath, whom the local pygmies worshipped as a god. Two crooked circus owners, Hackett and Sneed, try to buy Goliath, but Drake refuses, wanting to civilize the giant. So the circus owners hire a thug named Grimes to murder Professor Drake in his study, framing Goliath for the crime so they can seize him for their show.
Goliath is put in a cage at the Hackett and Sneed circus, but when he sees Grimes's face in the crowd, he remembers the murder of his beloved master. He goes absolutely berserk, ripping the iron bars of his cage apart with his bare hands. He grabs Grimes and dashes him against a tent pole, killing him instantly, then starts freeing the lions and elephants. The circus is in a state of sheer panic. Batman and Robin arrive, and Robin uses the trainer's stick to calm a stampeding elephant, riding it through the crowd to clear the exit, while Batman chases Goliath onto the high iron rafters of the circus bridge.
The fight on the bridge is a real David and Goliath clash, Simon. Goliath is climbing the iron girders, and Batman loops a rope around his shoulders, but the giant is too strong. He jerks the rope, pulling Batman off his perch. Batman is swinging in midair, and Goliath starts pulling the rope up to crush him with his bare hands. But Robin quickly draws his slingshot, twirling it about his head, and zings a steel pellet right into the giant's forehead. The impact dazes Goliath, and Batman drops like a plummet, his sudden fall tugging the giant off balance. Goliath plunges to the ground far below, his fall broken by a low-hanging trapeze net before he hits the dirt with a sickening thud. He dies of his injuries, a tragic giant who only wanted revenge for the man who loved him.
It is a remarkably sophisticated piece of storytelling, George. And that brings us to the men behind the curtain. Bob Kane and Bill Finger. We've talked about them before, but as this run matures, you can really see the division of labor in the studio. Kane's art is becoming much more cinematic, utilizing those massive, low-angle shots that make Batman look 10 feet tall. But Finger's scripts, they are architectural. He loves these dualities. Jekyll and Hyde in Adam Lamb, the theatrical actor and his mask in Basil Karlo, the United We Stand tokens in the Storma family. He's putting real psychological weight into a 10-cent comic book.
And Kane's studio is expanding too, Simon. You can tell they're bringing in other hands, ghost artists like Jerry Robinson and George Roussos, to help with the backgrounds and the inks. It gives the book a cleaner, more consistent look, even under the brutal monthly deadlines. But Finger's voice is the soul of the strip. He's the one pulling these ideas from classic literature and old German films, translating them into a language that kids on the street can understand. He's a real unsung genius, fella.
He is indeed, George. Well, my studio clock is telling me we're about out of time tonight, so let's check the mailbag. We got a letter from our friend Mr. Moore, who claims to be writing to us from the year 2024 through some high-tech electronic mail line. He says that Detective Comics 40 is the absolute peak of the Golden Age horror era, and that Basil Karlo will return decades from now as a literal monster made of living clay. He laughs at the idea. But you never know with these future letters.
Living clay. That's a real sci-fi stretch, Simon. If I start seeing guys turning into mud on the streets of Brooklyn, I'm retiring to a monastery. But if you folks want to send us a line, write to us at distinguishedcomicsradio@gmail.com. Tell us what you think of Clayface, or if you think the Catwoman is ever going to settle down with the Bat.
Indeed. For our next standard broadcast, we are leaving Gotham for a bit to cover a major new phenomenon on the newsstands. We will be diving into Captain Marvel and our first run-in with the Fawcett Publications line, covering Wiz Comics issues 2 through 11 and Special Edition Comics number 1. It is going to be an absolute blockbuster of a show, friends.
Oh, you bet it is. Captain Marvel is giving the big guy in Metropolis a real run for his money. Keep your chin up, Simon, and watch out for those air raids over London.
I will keep my lamp dim and my ears open, George. To all our listeners, keep supporting the boys in uniform, keep your eyes on the funny pages, and we will see you on the next program. Good night, folks.
Good night, folks. Watch the shadows, and we'll see you on the shortwave.